or bad, it's still going to lean towards what you know. And, sometimes I consider that a bad thing, because if you go to a stylist and you say, what should I do, or what would work best on me? And they're like, well, back of their head, they're thinking, well, the only thing I know how to do is tape in extensions, because I bought them from Amazon, and I watched a little video or took a little online class. And then they're like, tape in is going to be best for you. I wouldn't do anything else. When they really mean, all I know how to do is tape in. I don't know how to do anything else. And so they only recommend that. Now, some techniques can be used on everybody, and some people use one technique on everybody. So there can be some people that only know how to do one technique and just turn down clients that might need something else, or squeeze their technique into a place where it's marginal, but use it mostly where it is the best technique, and they just don't want to use anything else because they specialize. But as I've learned more and more techniques, I do feel fortunate, because I don't think everybody can afford the time and money it takes to get all the techniques under their belt. And then it takes experience. So that's one of the things I've loved about getting older and doing more and more hair over the years and more techniques. Because in the beginning, I used to think, God, they're so much better than me. They've been doing this for so long. You can't buy experience. You just can't buy it. It just comes with time. And you can get a lot of practice a lot sooner, but it comes with fear and mistakes and bad feelings. And then that kind of slows people down, because they don't want to piss a lot of people off or mess up a lot of people's hair or hurt a lot of people. So I get the struggle, but thank God for you and I, different levels and different times and different amounts of years, but still similar. We've spent a lot of time screwing it up.
It's so true. And that's one of the things that freaks people out, is the fear of messing up. And it's, it blows my mind, because whenever I'm talking to somebody about hair extensions, they act as if it is such a foreign item or service, or somehow magically it should act some special, unique way outside of what hair normally acts like. And I always use hair color as an analogy. Why do you need your hair extensions to do this one thing? If you do hair color, do you only ever do touch-ups and you do nothing else? No. You also have lighteners and bleaches. You do foils. You do highlights. You do toners. You do pull-throughs. You don't just do the one root color and then that's magically going to last, until it grows out and gets cut off. So hair extensions, you got to think about it and approach it the same way. There is different systems. There is different techniques, or there are different systems, techniques, and application methods, and they all matter. They're all viable. And if you're not sure how to do it, it is okay to say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I do this and I like this because, but this might not be for you. If you want to try it, let's go. If not, I could probably have to refer you or recommend you to somebody else or something else, And what's interesting about that, I've had a stylist call me up and say just that. I do this. She was doing she was doing tie-in bonds, like individual tied in bonds. Okay. And she told her client, the way I got to knot your hair probably is going to pinch too hard. I'm not comfortable doing it to you. You probably need straight up K-tips. So she says, but I don't do K-tips. I don't know how to do it. The client says, what does it take for you to do it? She goes, I can't afford the certification. The client actually offered to front the money for the certification. And then that's how the stylist and I got into contact with each other. And it was a wild three-way scenario with sharing pricing with a client and everything. But at the end of the day, the stylist cared that much. The client respected and appreciated it that much. That's an extreme example that I'm giving, but they do exist, and that's what it's really about.
Yeah. So when I do a consultation, and I just came from a hair replacement convention in another state, and it's the top hair replacement studios in the country, very high end. They're very opinionated about hair extensions. And the room is split, where I was in a room with 44 different hair replacement studios represented, and all across the country. And I would say more than 70-80% of them don't do hair extensions, because in the old days, hair extensions took so long to do, whereas hair replacement, it was a good 1 to 2 hour service for most people, hour and a half for a lot of studios. And what they know extensions is as a 3 to 4 hour appointment, and a whole lot of learning and messing up. So a bad, long, ridiculous learning curve in their opinion, because they've got technicians that are very proficient at putting hair on a bald head, which is hair replacement. And so then extensions was such a hard thing to learn. And then if they mess up, an expensive thing to fix. So with the new world of O-tips and the O-weft, the onstage weft, it's so much faster and easier that I'm trying to tell them it's not about doing the one thing. Stop thinking in terms of the one thing. Think of the client. They come in, you do a consultation. If they aren't thin enough up top, even though, and that's what I love about knowing how to do a bunch of stuff. You do advertising, and then the client says, yes, that's what I need. And then you come in and you're like, no, that's not what you need. But I do what you need, and let me explain it to you. So that's where knowing all the techniques comes into play. And so my pitch to these hair replacement studios is, when you do a consultation, are you not giving the client what they need? Are you just selling them the only thing you know how to do? So the funny thing is, it happens on the very high end too. I make fun of the tape-in extensionists, like they're the ones doing this terrible thing. But that's on the low end, because tape is generally pretty inexpensive, and it happens on the very high end for a couple $2,000 or $3,000 hair system, and they go in, and often Hair Club for Men's guilty of it. Often a man goes in. It doesn't matter, man or woman, goes in with kind of thin hair up top, but not so thin, but they have longer hair and it's kind of thin here, and their go-to is shave the top of the head, bond a hair system on, they'll have more hair. And it does fix the problem. It gives them more hair. It gives them more thickness through the ends too. But again, I'll say often it's not just the thinness up here, because the thinness up here is actually thin here too. You just don't see it because the hair lays over it. So they're thin down here also, right? So all of this hair is less. It looks sparse. And so if you put a row or 2 or 3 of extensions and thicken up this hair, maybe seeing a tiny bit of scalp on that part is not as big a deal, because now they got full hair most of the way. And the thing to think about is, it's not just that. It's almost like I'm selling extensions over hair replacement. I do them both, but I would say some things are more easily accepted by a client than others. And let's take a couple of those. One is shave the head or not. So if I can do extensions to buy some time, I've got them over the hump of doing nothing, right? I'm saying one is not necessarily much more expensive than the other or more maintenance than the other, but there's in our world right now, there's a much bigger okay or socially acceptable attitude out there about hair extensions over shaving your head and putting a toupee, a hairpiece, a hair replacement system on the top of your head. So even people that get their head shaved often say they have hair extensions, because they just lie to their spouse or their lovers or their friends. They're like, oh yeah, I got hair extensions. And nobody goes digging through there to investigate. So some of the hurdles and reasons are what's mentally most comfortable for the client at first, a no shave technique. And that's probably the first reason you might choose something a little less invasive. I don't know. Invasive usually means surgery, but in this case, shaving feels.
I guess, could you say commitment as well?
You could, because that's right. Somebody thinks if you shave my head and I don't like it and I have to take it off or not use it or not buy it or not spend money anymore, I'm left with a bald head. Whereas if you take extensions out, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess extensions is a lower commitment level. That's a good point.
It's a good point, and that's one of the things that works out really, really nicely. Hair extensions primarily exists. Okay, so if you look at your temple area, right above your temple area, there is what's called the parietal ridge. That's
Yep.
what us in the beauty industry refer to it as. It is the separation between the top of your head and the sides and the back of your head. Okay. And the reason why that's important is because when you put something on top of your head, whether it's a hat, a beanie cap, in this case, what we're going to be talking about, hair replacement or topper pieces, volumizers, enhancers, things like that, those should all exist above that parietal ridge, above that round of your head. That's where it looks more natural. If it goes below that, it starts looking fake as hell.
Yeah.
And then conversely, with hair extensions, primarily we are concerned about loading up underneath that parietal ridge, down on the sides, around in the back, because there is enough hair from the top to lay over it to help blend, especially if you're doing it. We over here on Profitable Stylist talk about the beautiful ability for hair extensions to create volume, fullness, thickness, color, enhancements, dimension, all sorts of things. Unfortunately, when people hear the word hair extensions, they just automatically, their brain goes to length. So the reason why we load up so much on the bottom underneath that parietal ridge is because when you're creating length, if your natural is up here and you're creating length down here, there's such an extreme disconnect. You need that extra hair to transition, to create that gradient effect. So it looks more of a natural, from that length, all of a sudden now you got this length. That's why it's not that hair extensions can't be put above the parietal ridge on top of the head. As long as you have enough hair to cover up the attachment area, you can put hair extensions wherever you want, And so what happens is it becomes really popularized, or this has become a nice hybrid effect when you are able to put a volumizer, a topper, some system that belongs on top, and then the hybrid comes in where simultaneously around the sides and in the back, wherever there's still room, you can extend it with, or you can enhance it, you can add to it, whatever the situation that you're trying to create with hair extensions, you could do that too. And this is where the creativity comes in. Just because you're doing one thing doesn't mean you're not allowed to do something else with it. And I defer back to hair color. Just because you do a root touch up with the hair color, you could still go in and put some foils. Everybody understands that. You're just enhancing the look. It becomes the same thing with extensions, no matter what type you're doing.
When you said creativity, have you ever put hair extensions on a wig, a hairpiece, a topper, a volumizer? Because
that's awesome, man. Oh, that's a great idea. Okay, yeah, I have not done that, but that's awesome.
And I personally, I guess I have done it to help another stylist out, but another stylist had the idea and just did it without asking me, and it worked out great. And it was K-tips. We put keratin bonded tips in a hair system as a highlight and or low lights at different times. And it was like, well, it was a faster technique because it was a blonde hair system. We bonded on this lady's head. And so she was worried about the color fading if she colored or did low lights. So in this case, she put darker extensions in that held the color much longer. And what was neat about that is they don't grow out at all. So they stay on the hair system. And so I've also had stylists that would have a larger hair system. And in some cases, like our volumizer and our enhancer, the hair length is only 12 inches long. And they wanted a little more. So they would get the 14-inch hair in extensions and add it right. Sometimes they put it just under on the client's head, but sometimes they attach it to the very bottom edge of the actual volumizer.
Okay.
Put it in there. It's always in there. Now they move the volumizer, put it back on after a color service or just a tightening maintenance service. And
Man.
they still might add a 18-inch weft of extensions down lower on the client. So they're having to take that one out and put it back in. But the other one, it was like within a couple of inches, either put it on the client and have to remove it and put it back in, or add it to the bottom edge of the volumizer. And then they don't have to remove that one. So it saves time for one thing, adds volume to the system. And even if that system got a little bit of a thin or a bald spot over time, they're thickening the hair system with hair extensions.
I mean, what a fantastic idea. Yeah.
The creativity. It's such a great idea. Whether you're adding length, highlights, or lowlights, it's just such a great idea to put them together. But like you were saying earlier, one or the other, I didn't know you were going to go into the creative side. And I'm glad you brought that up first. And then it was like using them both, but then using them both.
And then really using them both.
Yeah, it's like this or both or together. I mean,
you know why it's such a fantastic idea, though? For so many reasons.
I saw a light bulb go off in your head when I was saying it.
So many reasons. That's such a fantastic idea because it is labor intensive. It is cumbersome. It is labor intensive. It does take time. And there is an added cost to that. By being able to attach it to the system itself, oh my gosh, then now you're not worried about everything growing out at the same time and what's happening where and what. Just the maintenance, the lessening of the maintenance for the client at home. Boom. That is wild. That is so awesome, right?
Right.
And then from our point of view, that's one of the things I love about hair extensions is that, like you mentioned, there is the shorter length. There is 10-inch length. There is 14 to 16-inch length. There are shorter lengths. And when you have, especially on a lighter hair, in particular in the blondes, the blondies out there.
He's saying blonde.
Yes. Yeah. Level 8, 9.
The balloons. It took me a second when you go, especially the balloons. I was like, I wonder what people group he's talking about. And then I realized you were talking about a color of hair.
Of hair. Level 8, 9, 10.
Go ahead.
It's so painstaking work to get that level of lightness, yeah? But then sometimes the client wants contrast. And that is the kiss of death to hear as a stylist. You're like, I just finally got you this light. I know as soon as I put some dark in there, it's going to wash out.
He said dark.
It's not going to hold. It's not going to hold at all. It's going to fade. And the next thing you hear is my color got brassy. And that's the second kiss of death. Like you just want to, you just want to go home and get in bed, but being able to attach the hair extensions into the system, like you're talking about, to be able to create that contrast and it doesn't fade, it holds on. Oh man, yeah, that's so fun. Like now I need to go to the salon tonight and I don't care who I have. The next person asks me for a low light is getting a hair extensions.
What year are we in? Is this 2025?
25, yeah.
All right. I accidentally said 2024 at the house last night and I got made fun of by the family. So I just want to make sure I was on the right year and I didn't go adding or subtracting one. I think they're going to pull this out as a short because this might only be this year. We have removed all barriers. I don't know how long we can do this, but for 2025 at least, I think we're giving it a try, and we removed all barriers. If you go to yourextensions.com, you don't have to get certified, watch a video, pay to learn with us. You don't have to. We still have all of that available. But what we did is you can go to yourextensions.com and you can just register as a stylist. You have to be licensed, stylist, barber, and you can register and prove you're a stylist within 24 hours, open an account, and then you can order. Now, I might be opening up a whole bucket of worms here. We might.
Wow.
Yeah. I told my head sales girl, I said, listen, I have a little extra time lately. I've made enough videos to solve the problems or the common problems I have. So I call it this bucket, this mess up bucket. Fill up my mess up bucket. The mess up bucket is the amount of people who call me to fix the problems. So for a little while, I am willing to help and solve the problems for people who just can't figure it out. I do have a 1.5-minute quick start guide that just shows you how to put it in, how to take it out, how to reload it. And it's just 1.5 minutes, and it's really short, like a compilation tutorial video. But for those of you who think, I don't need another certification, I don't need another training, I don't need another class. I've been a stylist for ever, 3 whole years or 20 or whatever. I know how to do it. Just sell me the hair. Okay, we're going to do it. We're going to just sell you the hair. What?
I have to change my phone number and not update you with what it is. Thanks God.
We're
this
taking
is
a
May.
chance.
There's only,
we're taking a chance. Left. We are removing all barriers. I don't know what's going to happen, but they keep telling me, I already know how to do it. Just sell it to me. All right, let's see.
You know what? Let's go. You know what?
You didn't know what to say.
I have nothing. Oh, the only thing I have to say is if a stylist doesn't jump on this opportunity, they are.
Oh my God, I know. Right, because it might be such a disaster that we go back to full education, But I thought, let's just give it a try. I'm tired of hearing people tell me they already know how to do it. We are ripping them off, or our education is less than most people's, but it shouldn't cost that much. You should teach us for free. You got it. You got it.
You know what? I take it back. I'm not changing my number. I'm actually inspired because the amount of mistakes that are about to happen is going to be awesome. They're going to be such learning opportunities. Right. This is what I talk about. This is what we talk about all the time.
Right.
Make your mistakes so you can learn.
Do it.
You know what? Okay.
Now, I do recommend,
but now I'm excited.
I do recommend only put Eddie's phone number across the screen, guys. So I do recommend you make your mistakes on mannequins,
Yes.
What does this say? John said something. A client Eddie does not want to do. He refers them to me. There's a client Eddie.
Yes. If you make a mistake, or if you're scared, or if you just only know the one way of doing something and you're not sure, just send them to John. Buddy up with a stylist in your area that you like, or a friend, and just refer everybody off to that person. Dump it on them.
Yeah.
Just like you're dumping my phone number for this scenario.
And it is amazing how many people call me anyway after education. Listen, we have a Facebook group that's pretty helpful. People help each other through the Facebook private group. If you've bought from us, we enter you in there. So we'll put these people in that same Facebook group. And
okay.
And I think that these stylists that are in the Facebook group, most of them have paid for education and have learned properly. Doesn't mean they all know it either, because they have some of the same silly questions. Often, I say silly because it seems like second nature to me. It's not silly, but to me, it seems silly because I know the answer was in the education. So I get frustrated because I'm like, you did not watch the videos.
You did not take notes.
Why are you asking the question? You should have watched the video. So I get it. They're trying to do a shortcut. So that's what the quick start guide was all about. It's like, you know what? I'll show you everything in 1.5 minutes. You're in the beginning of the quick start video. You're right in the background watching me do it because you were the bad student, remember, in our training. And you're like saying, no, like the dumb stylist, I don't know how to do any of this. And I was showing you, and you were like, oh, I've learned from the master now, It
was fun. That was fun.
So we got a little clip of that. You're just standing there. Because it's out of context for you, because they just clipped a piece of the video where I'm doing it and you look like, oh, yeah. And I was like, that's sad for Eddie, because it doesn't really show that we already explained that you actually do know what's happening. You look like a real uneducated student right there in the beginning. Well, you're playing a part. You're playing a role.
Well,
you're playing so good.
There was an old comedian. He used to go, dee.
Yeah. You're really good at playing dumb. I don't know why.
I got a face for it, man. I'm a natural. So now to help bring this back around, so you have hair replacement, and then you have a volumizer, a topper, an enhancer, a wig. You have some top system as well.
Yeah.
They both do. They both are used to create the same look eventually, but their application methods are very different from each other.
Yeah.
So, in what scenario for a client would it be a recommendation to say, oh, you should probably start off using one of these instead of one of those, or eventually use this and then go to that? Or is there even a progression? Does it even matter?
There is a progression, and it's hard to put I'll try to do it descriptively as much as possible, and I'll go into like 3 categories as much as I can. Before the first category, I'm going to imagine most people have as much hair as me or a little bit less. But
Okay.
even people like me will be like, ooh, look, I'm starting to thin. And you're like, okay, you're just crazy. Go home. And so often we'll do nothing for those people. And obviously it's a little more of a conversation, but that's what you're thinking. And then you got to somehow sugarcoat it and say, oh yeah, I see what you're talking about. And if it progresses anymore, then we'll do something. But I think you're okay for right now. But then, so that first category is I'm going to go with these. I'm going to describe each one of the 3 really quickly. I'm going to say you're thinning a little, you're thinning medium, or you're thinning a lot, almost bald in some areas, like in maybe this whole front area or this whole back area. Pretty common. And it seems like men seem to bald from the front first. Sometimes it's both at the same time, and they keep a little hair in the middle and it blends. Most ladies keep their front hairline and they overall thin on top. It's the difference in male pattern baldness and female pattern baldness. So in both cases, as you start to see a lot of scalp on top, it's really kind of a judgment call. There's not a hard line. There's not a certain amount of hairs per square inch, but the progression for me would be the very first easiest thing to do and least invasive, since we started with that word, would be hair extensions. And it can be O tips, I tips, K tips. And at the Your Extension website, we don't sell I tips, but we have the O tips and we have the O weft, K tips, O tips, and O weft. So a weft and 2 types of tips. And those would all be that first step, right? Of course, you can do tape ins and you can do I tips and you can do other types of strands that are out there. And like you said, most of that's going to be on I say the top of the head and the sides of the head, but you're right, that parietal ridge, but below the parietal ridge, gray area, a little above it, maybe with some extensions. And then, of course, before thinning at all, some people are wanting extensions because they just want length, right? So that would go into that, I guess, that category before the first 3 of thinning, just want longer hair. That's going to be the first category. K-tip, O-tip, O-web, volumizer, and enhancer. Yeah, that's going to be that. That's going to be the order. He put the order up there before I finished it. Second category.
He's trying to remind you of what's available on the site.
No, but that is the order also. That is the order of importance. He put it in order. K-tip, O-tip, and weft are all just for lengthening and or the first step of thickening a little bit thin hair. And so then when you go into where you're thinning a little and you have some hair to attach to still, the volumizer adds hair to the top of your head, and it's a no-shave technique. So we're laying it on top of the head, pulling some of your hair through and attaching it with a bead that is hidden under tools and accessories also. We're getting notes as we speak. And so the beads from the O-tip and the O-weft are what hold this volumizer on. But the volumizer kind of the word is to volumize. You have some hair, but you need some more hair. And so you can attach it to it. And it's a no-shave technique. It's so fast and easy to use. It is definitely the next step. Of course, it can be used in conjunction with hair extensions if someone needs to. But it's the next separate step. In most cases, it's going to be used by itself. And it's got 12
because that rests on top. That's
it does. I was getting ready to say it's a 5-inch by 6-inch system. So it's just on the top of the head, and you can position it right up to the front hairline or a little behind it, depending on how thick the front hairline is. And then the enhancer is similar to the volumizer, but it's for someone that has no hair on the front, like they've lost their hair and they kind of bald on the front, and there's no hair to attach to. So the very front edge has a tape tab where the same kind of tape that people would use for tape-in hair extensions is taped to the bottom side of the system and then stuck to the client's head. And just in that front, it's taped down. But then you're putting beads on the rest of the system around the edges, still 5x6, still this area. And you're attaching it with beads all the way through the middle and around the edges. And that front has more of a lace meshy type of system. So you can part it, see a scalp, and it looks like the hair is growing right out of your scalp. And we sell these in right part, center part, or left parts. Because in the part section, we put a strip of silicone that looks more like a scalp, looks like a real scalp. And so you're going to want to get, it's better if you get the system that matches the part. And a right part would be where the part is over the right eye. So if the hair splits and opens over the right eye, we call that a right part. Some people, when hair goes to the left, they'll call that a left part. But so sometimes in the hair of parting, right part, left part can mean the same thing. Do you part it to the left or do you part it on the right? Both the same thing. So we call the part where the hair splits and you see the scalp. Right part is over the right eye. See the scalp over the right eye in the part. Left over the left eye, center in the center. And then, of course, you can always adjust the system a little bit if you want to move that part just a little bit. But the enhancer is that third category if we're going to do 0, 1, 2, and 3. 0 is just length. 1 is a little thin. 2 is medium thin. And then 3 is going to be a bald area that we're trying to cover up. So then, of course, you need some tools. You need the right tool to squeeze this bead. Our bead is revolutionary. And people cannot get it. They cannot get it because it looks like the old bead. It looks like the old bead. But looks can be deceiving. I mean, you can look at cars and they all have 4 wheels and you're like, they're all the same till you drive it, right? And that's kind of like our bead. Until you drive our bead, you don't know the difference. It's a softer aluminum than most beads. The corners and edges are rounded so it doesn't break or cut or scrape on the hair. It's so comfortable you don't feel it. It's much smaller than most other beads for a lot of reasons.
So much smaller.
Too much to explain here. Most other beads have something else in the bead, like the eye of the eye tip. Ours is just the client's hair. So it can be smaller and still hold more hair and have a better grip, better anchor point. But the other thing about our bead is once it's squeezed on there, the soft aluminum alloy, because there's other metals in there too, grips the hair so well, it doesn't need silicone in there. When you put silicone in the bead, now your bead has to be so big. And yes, silicone beads was the best thing for a long time till we came out with this bead, which just... I was so upset and a little in a rut for a long time in the hair business and the extension world because we're selling the same K-tip forever. And I'm sorry to say it got boring, it was just the best hair in the world. And so you just get tired of saying that. She hair, best hair in the world, best hair in the world. People just don't even believe you anymore. We have the best K-tip. We have the best quality hair. It barely tangles. The color doesn't fade. It's a good quality hair. And the big thing was it got to the point where people wanted reusability. So we looked for another brand. And then this on stage O-tip and OF dropped in our lap. And it was like, wait, what? The bead doesn't have silicone in it? I had the same problem. And then where does the eye go? There's no eye. What do you mean there's no eye? Nothing else goes in the bead. It's hard to understand. You almost have to see one of our advertising videos to understand how it even works. But our bead has no silicone. It stays in better than everybody else's bead. And the only drawback, because people are trying to figure out how to use our bead like everybody else's bead, and it's not a huge drawback, but I guess it could be looked at as a drawback. It isn't to me, is the bead is not reusable. It's 18 cents for a new bead, $18 for a little jar of 100. But so many people say, I'm trying to reuse the bead and don't. Some people reuse it a second time. Just don't reuse it. Just take it out and put a new bead on. Some people unsqueeze the bead, push it up, re-squeeze it, and they use it one more time. We don't recommend it, but many people do it. So I know it can be done, but it is a softer aluminum, so it grips the hair better. So a softer metal is not going to be as reusable because it's going to start to fall apart later. So there's that balance between such a hard metal that it's damaging and destructive to the hair. And sure, it can be reused over and over, but why? So we went with the other side of the too soft and it just falls apart. So we're right in that sweet spot. We tested a lot of beads. Then they started got this proprietary technique where they would round the corners and edges, the inside, because beads like this, so they're softening this corner and the outside corner on both sides. That takes a lot of work. And I asked the manufacturer that makes our stuff, I said, now how do we round those corners? He said, oh, we don't say.
It is a proprietary thing,
proprietary. So that's good enough for me. As long as they're actually doing it and you can see it and we don't tell anybody. I love the secrecy around it. But I get pretty passionate about the bead. And I hope I answered all the other questions and covered tools. So our tools.
And that's why the tools matter. That's right. Why, everyone's like, oh, I have a tool. You don't. You really don't.
You don't. You don't have a tool. And so our tool has a couple of grooves inside each side. And when it presses together, it's pressing like this, and it's causing an S-shaped curve inside the bead. And it has to be pressed where when that tool goes on the bead, it's directly sideways. Some people get lazy and come in at an angle like this or an angle like this. Some people come from underneath and squeeze the bead like this and create the line up and down, which is 100% wrong. I've been dealing with a girl out of state right now that said, well, that's the way you taught me a few years ago when you came. And I'm like, what do you say when they say that? You're like, no, I didn't.
I know I like to drink before I start teaching class, but I don't even drink over that day.
I want video proof that I screwed up on this day. But I sent her a video and she's like, oh, maybe you didn't teach it like that. Now I see why everything's going wrong. And that's great. I'm glad you called. I'm glad I got the opportunity to fix it. And so coming from the side, clamping that bead directly from the side, it's going to put a line across the bead this way on one side of the bead and two lines on the other side of the bead. So you can literally pick the hair up, look at the bead, and if it has a line sideways on the bead or a little bit of an angle, it's okay. But if that line is way diagonal, you're on the verge of it not being right, because those lines are what are grabbing the hairs on the inside of the bead all the way across. And at one point, when you get a little too far of an angle, you're not grabbing some of the hairs you should be grabbing. And when you go to remove the bead and try to take that bead that is closed and you're trying to push it together to open it back up, if that line's crooked, that bead often will just collapse this way or this way, and it won't open like it's supposed to. So getting the line sideways actually helps you remove faster and easier. And if you're going to reuse that bead like you shouldn't, it's in way better shape to reuse that one time if you're going to slip it up, which I don't agree with. And we'll go into that in another video. But the tool matters. The tool matters. And
the tool matters. That's the reason why a lot of the removal, the process during removal fails. And that's what a lot of people run into those issues. It's also one of the reasons why people get frustrated and they don't know what to offer to their client, because they are inadvertently creating damage, which is leading to breakage. And eventually you start running out of enough hair to attach pieces to. And that's where the overhead pieces come on. That's where the wigs come into play. That's where the replacement comes in, and it's really, really vital. When you're going, I love how you were talking about earlier, being able to attach the individual strands to the piece itself, or if you're going to put the piece and just put it left underneath it. My mind is just so, I am so hung up on that right now. Like I am just thinking of so many different creative placement strategies and application approaches to how to create additional texture and volume and things like that. It's not about length. To me, it's not about length. The money in there's so much more money to be made in hair extensions when it's done for completing a look rather than creating a look.
Yeah.
And that's really what majority, if you look at the current trends right now and the current styles right now, and if you just look at overall what people want, everybody says they want length because they just don't know what else to do. And everybody has this mindset that life is going to be so much easier if they just have long hair. And they don't realize how much more work is involved when you have long hair. you know. So a lot of people, they're like, oh, does your topper come any longer? Does the volumizer, does the enhancer come any longer? It's like, you actually don't want that longer length. You really don't. If you want that long hair, you want it to be layered. You don't want one big mop of hair just coming straight down and even down to your bottom of your rib cage. That is just not the styles anymore. You want the ability to have that natural movement in the hair, the flow. You want to be able to put half your hair up and leave the other half of it down. You want that freedom and flexibility to be able to do what you need to do when you want to do it. Also, you want to have the ability to wear different outfits. If your hair is all just one length, think about your outfit choices.
You
Think
wear
about
nothing then, because your hair is your outfit.
your hair is your outfit. That's it. You got nothing, But if you have the different lengths and the different layering and the different movement going on, you could wear a, I don't know, what are they called? Side strap or Tarzan Jane shirt, or a tube top or halter top or whatever they're
I
called.
don't know fashion at all, so that's
I'm
why I
just
wear a
saying,
black t-shirt.
right? Gives you the flex.
I'm not going there.
You could detail against even a black t-shirt, a plain black t-shirt. Like there's so many more freedom and choices.
I just
And
ate my last pretzel and finished my coffee, so I'll be going soon. But I want to finish with this.
What you got?
One of the main reasons. You're right. You're so right. You made me think about like some details about it. You don't want, when you go to the top of the head, the hairdresser, and I get it. The hairdresser's thought process is, what are my choices? Lengths, colors, all these things. And as we're moving up the head, because we started with extensions here and length was a choice, the different lengths. When you get to the top, most people are getting extensions because their hair was shorter up top, first of all. So shorter, like a 12-inch enhancer or volumizer, is usually enough. But the thing that a lot of stylists don't think of is, as we're progressing through this progression we just talked about of putting hair here, and then more here and more here, and then one of those choices is going to be they have so little hair up there that they're shaving it off and bonding a system on because we don't have enough to bead to. That would probably be that fourth step that we didn't quite get to. So we have 0 and 4, extensions because they're not thin, they just want length, and then 4 because they're so thin, they have no hair to attach to. So shave and apply is the only option because the few hairs you have are going to get pulled out if you do it any other way. And that's what I wanted to focus on for a second. There's a certain point when you add too much length, too much weight, too much stress to the anchor points. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So 12-inch hair on the top, in my opinion, is probably borderline the longest you should do. Now, I know 22 and 24 and 28-inch hair is a big trend right now. Wigs that go that long, but a wig is generally a glove that goes on your head than is long hair. Worst case scenario, it gets pulled on, it just comes off of your head. If it's attached to the few hairs you have on your head, the longer you go, the more weight and the more chance of damage. Now, pulling some hair out of a person's head is not usually permanent damage, but it often is. And so you hook to these very small anchor points and it keeps pulling and tugging and it pulls a little, and you're like, ow, ow. And then you keep putting those. That's why clip-ins, clip-in extensions, clip-in toppers, over time, clipping the exact same spots, and you keep pulling the same hairs out as they grow back. You pull them out again. It was the theory behind eyebrow waxing and waxing other parts of the body. It's like, we're going to pull it out, damage the whatever is the part under the skin. There's all kind of scientific names. Nobody really knows what it's called.
Talking about the follicles?
Except for Eddie. Yeah. So
what are you talking about?
When you pull the hair out, it gets damaged at its deepest root of origin, and it most of the time grows back. But after multiple damaging in the same spot, they start to call it traction alopecia, because traction is the art of the process of pulling, right? When you do traction on your spine, your neck, they're pulling on your head to relieve pressure between your vertebrae. That's traction. Traction in hair is pulling. So you pull the hair out of your head and you do it over and over and over, you end up with scar tissue near where you used to have hair. And then they call it traction alopecia, basically a bald spot caused by pulling. And so over time you can damage. And so that is the risk of going with too long, too heavy of hair, shampooing improperly, brushing so hard that you're just pulling and you're not supporting this or supporting the extension. So the more you can support the anchor points on the scalp, the more you're going to save the possible future damage on your head. And so, of course, shorter hair is going to be easier also. Done.
I don't think people realize, when you're mentioning the wig, yeah, you get the nice long hair and all that stuff, but a wig isn't long-term wear. It's daily wear. Huge difference. You take that off at the end of the night and you allow your scalp to breathe. When you are attaching hair extensions, hair replacement, enhancers, volumizers, that is to be worn for an extended period of time, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, whatever the system is that you're using. And what a lot of people don't realize is when it's freshly applied, it's all nice and tight and close. As it starts to grow out over the course of the weeks, your hair on average grows a half an inch a month. All right. A half an inch a month is about that much. Now that doesn't look like a lot, but when it's off your head, that's free fall and gravity, the amount of gravity that's pulling, especially when your hair gets wet, it just gets twice the weight of its natural state and it stretches twice its amount. Just think about that rubber band. Just think about a rubber band. How many times can you pull a rubber band, stretch it out, and then bring it back, pull it out, stretch it out, and bring it back? Eventually, it's going to start losing its elasticity. It's going to get weakened and it's going to snap. So having that extra long hair on the top like that, that's what that's what you're talking about, Bernard. You can't, for long-term wear like that, it is a serious problem. And as we have seen in recent years, traction alopecia has become up to the forefront, with a lot of, concerns, especially with shedding and stuff like that. So yeah, great points. Great points.
I got nothing else.
Great talk, man. That's awesome. So go to yourextensions.com and sign, because that's an amazing offer.
It may not last forever. It might not last. It might not last the whole year. We're hoping to keep it up for the whole year and longer if it's successful, but we may just have to stop it. So
pretty wild. So yeah, thank you all for watching, man. We'll catch you all next week.
Subscribe, comment.